Yeah, I should win just because you had the Timberwolves in the 8th seed.
Vasilevsky's been playing really well, and the Lightning have a great offense.
Yeah, it was a tremendous shot, and I've come to expect it from LeBron, who's become one of the clutchest players in NBA history as of recently.
So I have him going off one night, but I think he's just going to get tired. So that's why the Nets winning in 5.
I would say I wish the best for the Red Sox, but as a Yankees fan, that's really hard for me to do.
The biggest addition to me is Jalen Brunson.
Both teams that beat the Rangers are rebuilding faster than the Rangers.
Why'd you have to name them? Like, seriously. Thanks, man. To me, those top 2 starters are Lucas Gaelito and Lance Flynn.
Kaprizov and the rest of this crew. Jordan Greenway, who doesn't get enough props. He definitely is somebody who needs to be mentioned more. I definitely think it's going to be a great series, and I'm interested to see how much Kaprizov can impact the game as a rookie.
How is Joe Burrow going to get the ball to them if his butt is already on the ground when he finally decides who to throw to?
Aaron Rodgers is Aaron Rodgers, and that's all I have to say. He's still a top 5 quarterback in this league, and there's nothing really anyone can do about it.
All I could think of was Dame.
I don't think they will. If they don't have Anthony Davis, I'm saying it right now, if Anthony Davis is out for the playoffs, they don't make it out of the first round.
And then I want to talk about the Fernando Tatis extension, because that really surprised me. Because he's so young.
The Hurricanes just have too much. They're probably the most complete team this year, and I anticipate them winning.
You know what this means, Bengals. Take the nice one. Do not let what happened to Andrew Luck happen to Joe Burrow.
Clippers versus the Nets. Who would have thought 5 years ago that the Clippers and Nets would be facing in the finals?
But I have the Sixers versus Jazz.
Crazy. And for the fans at home, for the listeners at home.
Hello, I'm Cy Mendenhall, and you're listening to Outsiders Opinions with Kevin and Austin.
What's up, y'all? Welcome to our NFL Power Rankings episode. It's going to be tiers, as we feel this is a better way to talk about it. And so there are 5 tiers. And the first one is Dante's Inferno. Then we have Cliffhangers, Limbo, Purgatory, and Garden of Eden. So Dante's Inferno, we'll start with there. They're utter disasters, the teams that are in this. Like, it could not be worse. Well, maybe it could be in next week's or whenever we do this again. Let's start with the Jags, Austin, because they're a team. You've heard the rumors of Urban Meyer flirting with USC, or USC flirting with Urban Meyer, I think is better. But I don't think he'll take it, but it's just a funny thing to hear. And they just have not done well. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. Also, Trevor Lawrence has been terrible. That's the nicest way I can say it. Besides some garbage time touchdowns in a couple of these weeks, he really is not impressed. There's been many better rookie QBs, and while most rookie QBs have struggled besides Mac Jones has really shown that maybe he was the best selection, or Belichick was the best coach. But, I mean, he doesn't even work with the offense, so maybe it's McDaniels that is great with running with quarterbacks. I don't know. The next team is the Jets. Zach Wilson again, another guy that's just not performed well. And what do you think about that?
Yeah, and just one more thing with the Jags and like the Patriots. I think Mac Jones is the best starting quarterback, or has the best situation, but that could change if Trey Lance starts for the 49ers. If he starts sometime, I think he is in the best situation. But right now it's Mac Jones. And then the thing with Jacksonville is there's really not that much. I'm not too worried, though, about Trevor Lawrence, and I wouldn't be that worried about, well, maybe a little bit more worried about Zach Wilson, because, of course, we all know who holds the most interceptions in rookie history. And that, of course, is one of the best quarterbacks of all time, Peyton Manning. So there's no panic button to push on these quarterbacks just yet.
I'd like you to fact check this. I think it's 29. I think.
Okay, let me see. I think it's 28, but let me look that up.
Okay, you're just going to go one less than me.
I'm pretty sure it's 28. Okay,
But yeah, while you look that up, I'll talk a little bit more about Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson really likes to get out of the pocket and try
I
to
got it.
make plays that are very, very out of. They're not. Zach Wilson tries to be Patrick Mahomes. Like he tries to do stuff out of the pocket and make magical plays, but then he realizes he doesn't have Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, or otherwise. So, what's your update?
It is 28. So,
Hmm.
but
I'll believe that you came up with that despite my
I
29.
I would have guessed 28 because I just remember Peyton Manning always talks about it's never going to get broken, but it could be broken this year. I just want you to guess who is the second person.
How much they had, or how
They
who
had
are?
27, but who is the second person that threw 27?
Is he somebody I have a chance of getting?
I don't think so.
What year? Tell me the year.
1976.
Oh wow!
He played 14 games.
And through 27.
Yes.
So that's the record per game. Has to be.
I don't think there's a stat for that, but yeah, that has to be. The third one is pretty interesting as well, but I have no idea who this guy is in the second one.
You're saying that it happened what year?
1976. That's the season.
1976. Wow. 1976. I'm trying to think of quarterbacks back then that had their career start in 1976. Can you give me a team?
Yeah, Seattle. I was going to ask you, I don't know if you can do this.
No, I don't think I got it. You tell me.
Jim Zorn.
I've heard of Jim Zorn.
Okay,
I
haven't
wouldn't have
heard of him.
gotten it. I wouldn't have. Because I didn't know he started in 1976.
Okay.
That's
The third guy played 13 games and he threw 24 interceptions. He's pretty well known. Even for people our age who don't know that he was a quarterback. He's an analyst now.
don't know he was a quarterback?
They would, if you said this name to
Phil
someone.
Collins.
Huh?
Phil Collins?
No.
Oh.
I guess they would see it, but like if you said this person's name,
Is
they
it
would
Terry?
go, yeah, it's Terry Bradshaw.
Yeah, okay.
Like, I think if you told someone Terry
Well,
Bradshaw.
when you said like most people wouldn't know he was a quarterback, that's why I said Phil Collins, because
Okay.
he is. I mean, I know people know he's a quarterback, but
Like, I think people, if you said Terry Bradshaw to a younger person, they would go, oh, the guy on Fox, not the quarterbacks for the Steelers and part of the miraculous catch. So that's what I was saying.
immaculate reception, by the way.
Immaculate reception, my bad. So we just triggered some Raiders fans right now, but it's not to push the panic button. I just wanted to tell you the second guy and then the third guy, but top two out of the top three are Hall of Fame quarterbacks. So,
Yep. Our next team in Dante's Inferno is the Vikings. This team I'm going to combine with the Giants. They can't win close game. At the very end, when there's a field goal needed, they either make it because they had an offsides that was clearly an offsides, and I don't know how you jump offsides there. And then the Vikings miss a chip me field goal, which is like, at this point, that's their mantra. So, yeah, I'm going to pair these two teams together because I believe they've had a very similar start to the season. What do you think?
yeah, I definitely agree. Field goal, keeping them from getting that first win, definitely hurts. And just the coaches, Mike Zimmer is part of it, but I think Joe Judge, I think this might be, if it does not get better, I think they might get rid of Joe Judge. And I am going to say go after an offensive coordinator, maybe Kellen Moore. But I don't know if they take it. But Vikings, I think that's more of a chance of getting rid of them. And they do have Kellen Mond, who is someone that could replace Kirk Cousins because that is just a very expensive contract. What do you have to say?
Yeah, I heavily disagree with you. I'm a 3-year before you fire type of guy. I believe the coaches should give 2 years to settle with his team. No matter if they go 0-16 both years, I don't believe he should be fired. And this is Joe Judge's second year. And then next year is the year where I'm like, okay, now it's time to prove yourself. And I give him the entire season to prove himself. And if he's not, then fire him at the end of that year. I just don't think Joe Judge has been given enough time. Last year they didn't have training camp. They really had a weird season. And this year, I mean, this is his first year with Saquon. Was a healthy Saquon. He's still as a new head coach. Uh, it's hard for him working with a rookie QB. We've seen Belichick is better with younger QBs. I believe that's because of his age. But Joe Judge, new head coach, it's harder to work with your supposed to be your franchise QB, especially if they're young. And Daniel Jones is just not established yet. So I give Joe Judge time. Mike Zimmer is definitely on more of a hot seat because he has an older roster. Adam Thielen, Kirk Cousins, and crew. Their defense is old, so they have much more pressure to win now versus the Giants, who have a much more young lineup, especially on offense.
Yeah, that's very true. And they do have some really good wide receivers. The main thing is quarterback. But now let's go to our final team in Dante's Inferno, and that is the Falcons. You trade away Julio Jones. I think they don't have a quarterback, and they have that big contract with Matt Ryan, so they're really not doing well. And you're in a tough division. So any other thoughts?
Wow, I really thought that they had a good chance this season to surprise some people, not make the playoffs, but surprise. And the consistency is really not picked up. Kyle Pitts has really been a disappointment. I really think he has a lot of upside, but I expected more, especially after trading Julio. He was going to be their number one option behind Calvin Ridley. So I expected more, and their defense is terrible, and they had a chance against the Bucks, and then Matt Ryan said, "Here's 14 points." So that's really how it went.
Yeah, that's something they have fallen from
Grace.
that when they won the NFC. Yeah, from when they won the NFC or when they won the NFC Championship and had that 28-3 lead.
Yeah, everything has
just
been
went
downhill over the last half decade from when they choked a 28-3 lead. I still can't believe that happened.
I don't. I think they're still shocked. As we've said, it's all downhill since then.
Yeah. Now we can move on to our next tier. These are cliffhangers. These are teams that are trying to avoid falling into the depths of destruction from becoming utter disasters. We have 3 teams here, Bengals, Colts, and Lions. Very different reasons for all 3 teams. The Lions have put up a fight in both of their games, but they just cannot. I really like their new head coach, but they still need to learn how to win. Every team does. Unless you're the Patriots. The Patriots already know how to win somehow. Always. They never seem to struggle even with a new quarterback. They always know how to win games. But the Lions need to learn how to win. If they can learn how to win, they could really contend. I really like Jared Goff and his new system. They have quality offense, especially with Panay. I really like that offensive line now. It's getting better, especially with Frank Ragnow as a center. It's a really good offensive line comparatively to some teams in their division, aka the Bears and Vikings, who have terrible offensive lines. And then you have the Packers, who are like the God sent offensive line that Aaron Rodgers loves. But yeah, the Lions are just they got to learn how to win.
Interesting. Guess the offense coordinator right now for the Lions.
Say again.
Who's the offense coordinator for the Lions?
I have no idea.
Anthony Lynn, because I really like that.
That's right. That's right. I should have known that. You're right. Yep.
Jared Goff looked well. He looked pretty good. And I like Dan Campbell. Probably not for the reason a Lions fan would like him. It's just he has some great quotes, like biting off the kneecaps. I'm still very. I'm not confident in him as a head coach, but that could change. I really like Anthony Lynn as an offensive coordinator. Their offensive line is great. we've talked about how getting Panay Sewell would be great for a team that needs offensive line help. And I think now we can transition to a team that would have liked having Panay Sewell and had the chance to. And that, of course, is the Bengals. And they chose Joe Burrow's buddy instead of a person that would protect Joe Burrow. What are your thoughts?
I really thought the Bengals had turned the page when they won versus the Vikings, but all that went to put it in nice terms, it turned really sour fast, to say it in the nicest way possible, the most kids version possible. Uh, Joe Burrow wet the bed. The Bears defense was way too good for him. And even though the secondary for the Bears is suspect, it wasn't even secondary that caught the pick six. It was a linebacker. And the linebacking and front four, it's really the front seven. The front seven of the Bears defense is up there with the best front sevens in the entire league with Washington and the Steelers. I've really been impressed by the Bears this season with their defense, front seven, not secondary, because secondary has been torched by the Rams. But Joe Burrow cannot figure it out. And I'm worried for Zach Taylor that this may be his last chance to prove himself in Cincinnati before they start looking for someone else to fill the shoes.
Yeah, so to build off that, the best help to a quarterback, there are two things, and they tie into each other: run game and the offensive line. And to have a good run game, you have to have a good offensive line. Like we saw, you could see it in the Packers game. There were some nice holes for Aaron Jones to go through. There were some very good holes with the Cowboys, and that's what made the Cowboys offense so good. And that's what makes the Rams so dangerous, is because of that run game with an elite passer, which I think Joe Burrow is. It's just he doesn't have the time. And he has the weapons. What else do you have to add?
They have a good run game. Joe Mixon is second in the league right now in rushing yards. I didn't know if you know that.
I
But he
did
has
not know that. Thank you.
196 rushing yards in 2 games. But that may be Joe Mixon making his own holes through jukes or trucks or whatever. But I feel like their O-line is good in rush scenarios. They have an O-line that can go attack. But when they're getting attacked, when they're on their back heels, they don't have much they can do. They aren't a very, very strong O-line. They're an O-line that can go push you out of the way when they have to for run purposes, and they're faster than most. But in pass protections, they are not all that capable. What are your thoughts about that?
So I just looked up another thing of Joe Mixon. I think you should get this guy. I looked up broken tackles. So like I have that. You can guess number one pretty easily, and then number two is Joe Mixon.
So number one is the person who leads NFL in rushing yards, Derrick Henry, right?
Yes.
And then number two in the league in rushing yards and broken tackles is Joe Mixon. That seems like a pretty high correlation between broken tackles and rushing yards.
After contact, Derrick Henry has 3.4. That's the average, and then Joe Mixon has 2. So that is just another thing to keep an eye on. So my bad. Thanks for catching me on that. But it's good to have a balanced O-line, which is something hard to come by. But I think now we can move on to the final team in our cliffhangers, which they have some pretty high expectations. That's the Colts. And Carson Wentz is injured. He sprained both his ankles.
I don't even know how that's possible. When I read that report, I'm like, how do you sprain one ankle and then have the strength to sprain the other ankle? I'm not a doctor, so I don't really understand it. I would love for a doctor in the comments to explain how that can even happen. But yeah, it's just confusing, and it really hurts for a Colts team that needs all the breaks they can get.
Yeah, and now I believe Jacob Eason is now the quarterback because
Ellinger's
Sam
still hurt.
Ellinger. Yeah, Ellinger's still hurt. So it's not looking good, and they've given up. I think they gave up a couple deep balls to the Rams. They definitely gave up deep balls to the Seahawks.
Cooper Cup.
So-
Cooper Cup had like a billion yards.
Gave me a lot of points in fantasy.
Yeah, he had 37.9 or something like that. He had a lot of yards.
So that's why they're on our cliffhangers. The quarterback situation and the defensive liability to the long ball could push the Colts into Dante's Inferno, and same thing with all the three other teams, but very different reasons, as you mentioned. Now let's go into limbo. I'll let you explain that.
So limbo, if we're talking about it theologically speaking, limbo, if you are in limbo, you're just going through the motions. You're in the middle. That's why we have it in the middle. You're just going through the motions. Nothing negative really is happening. Nothing positive is happening. And that can make it a very depressing place because nothing's getting better, but nothing's really getting worse either. So our first team here that we really think is in limbo, the Bears. The Bears won this week how they've won the past 3 years. Their defense caught a pick six, or their defense makes a big play in general, and they end up winning the game close. And then eventually down the line, Nick Foles is the quarterback again for some reason, and they do something and they make the playoffs or something. But it just seems like the same thing. They're not getting better as a team. And while their defense front seven, like I said, is one of the best in the league, it can't carry a team to a Super Bowl.
And that's something they had Kyle Fuller, not Kendall Fuller. Kendall Fuller is now, I believe, with the Washington football team. They cut Fuller, and I think they had to trade someone else. Who did they get? They traded someone. I know they cut Kyle Fuller. Whom I forget. Oh, they cut Desmond Trufant.
Yes, they did.
So two veteran players, and now it's kind of an unproven secondary. And it's always a chicken or the egg situation. Do you want a better front seven or a better secondary? I think in today's league, and especially when probably the team to beat right now is the Bucs, I think you need a better secondary than a better front seven, given how some quarterbacks, especially Tom Brady, can get the ball quickly out of their hands. So what do you think about that?
It really depends on the team. If I'm playing against the Titans, I want a better front seven. I want to get to Derrick Henry. Even though they have a good pass attack, Derrick Henry will beat you. He will. He can. But against a team like the Bucs, Chiefs, but again, the Chiefs, they got taken out, even their big passing attack, because of their front seven. The Bears have that good of a front seven. If the Bears front seven was switched with the Bucs front seven, I don't think anyone the same thing would have happened in the Super Bowl. They would have absolutely torched the Chiefs. The issue with the Bears is that they're on the field so often they get no rest, and that's really hard for secondary because when you're running with Tyreek Hill the entire game, it's hard to keep running with Tyreek Hill the entire game. So the Bears' offense is really not helping their defense, and that's the difference between the Bucs and the Bears right now. Is the Bucs' offense is insane, and so their defense gets a ton of rest, and then they go out there and catch two pick sixes. So I feel like we move on to our next team in limbo, the Cowboys. The Cowboys played really well against the Bucs, and then I honestly thought they played pretty bad against the Chargers. I thought the Chargers and Cowboys played terrible. It was just not a fun game to watch. And even though I did watch it, and there was that long 56-yard field goal that Zerline hit, it just wasn't a good game. And they have an opportunity because of Ryan Fitzpatrick's injury to steal the division from the best team. And I think that needs to be their goal. But right now, they're not impressing me.
I'm impressed by the defense, but I also had very low expectations for this defense. Trevon Diggs, that interception, it kind of sums up the career of Trevon Diggs because he gave a huge play and then he gets an incredible interception. So he just needs to get better with having more interceptions and stop giving up the big plays. Parsons had to play defensive end. DeMarcus Lawrence is out. But the offense, because Cowboys did not score till I think they kicked two field goals. They didn't score a touchdown in the second half, I think.
No, they didn't.
So, and when they get to the red zone, they're just not, it's not productive, in my opinion. And I really hate that we are spending 90 million on Zeke when you can just tell Tony Pollard just hits it differently than Zeke. And Zeke, once he gets hit, he's down. So it's and this is the first year of the contract, of that 90 million contract. So it's
Is it 5 year?
it's 5 years.
Yes, I
Yeah.
thought.
So it's difficult. Were you laughing at my opinions of the offense? Do you think
I
do you
was laughing
agree?
at the Zeke Park.
Okay.
Part, not park. Part. But it really depends because Derrick Henry's getting paid big and he still hits the hole. It really depends on the running back. But I understand your point that you don't want to pay a running back because you don't know what the running back's going to be when he gets his bread. When he gets his money, how is he going to play? And that's the difference. As we saw with Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones was a beast against the Lions and he just got paid. Zeke, he's a much more tame individual once he has the money in the bank. Tony Pollard is a very hungry player, and he's the best running back on the Cowboys. I don't think that's really a question right now. Am I wrong? You look surprised.
No, I agree.
But,
I just Cowboys fans are going to be mad because I know them, and I'm like, you shouldn't have paid Zeke, and they're like, well, he's great. No, he's not. He's good because of our offensive line. Derrick Henry, we haven't seen it with because the 5th year you're supposed to be good, but Zeke has just fallen off, even though he's lost so much weight. Like that's a big thing that everyone was
doesn't
talking
matter.
about week 1.
Well,
like,
unless you're Eddie
"He looks so
Lacy,
thin."
unless when you got to Eddie Lacy where he was way overweight, it doesn't really matter, dude. Weight doesn't really matter.
But like they harped on it so much.
Jerome
during
Bettis
the
was a
first
big
2
dude,
Cowboys
and
games.
Jerome Bettis could hit the hole harder than I don't think. I've seen videos of Jerome Bettis, and he was a big dude. He wasn't the most fit guy, but he was insane, and he would hit the hole harder than I think I've ever seen anyone else hit the hole. Weight doesn't really matter. It's about will. It's about wanting to get the extra yard. It's Marshawn Lynch. Marshawn Lynch wasn't the most fit. He ate Skittles on the sideline
I was
every
about to say
game.
that. Power
He
fellas.
ate Skittles on the sideline. It didn't matter. Marshawn Lynch was getting that yard. That's why I'm still surprised he didn't run it on the 1 yard line. But I'm not going to bring up the Super Bowl again. Marshawn Lynch wanted the yard. He was going to get it, and there was nothing anyone could do about it. That's what I love about football. That's what I love about sports. My favorite thing in sports is when both teams and everybody in the building knows what's about to happen, and there is nothing the other team can do about it. There was that one game where Calvin Johnson caught 329 passing yards against the Cowboys, and the Cowboys started triple teaming him, and then he caught another touchdown while being triple teamed. Everybody in the building knew they were throwing to Calvin Johnson. Everybody watching the game knew they were throwing to Calvin Johnson. The Cowboys knew they were running. They're throwing to Calvin Johnson. Matthew Stafford, before the ball was hiked, knew the ball was going to Calvin Johnson. Calvin Johnson knew it was coming to him, and there was nothing the Cowboys could do about it. It's just beautiful.
It's
absolutely beautiful.
It's just the thing, like they harped on. Zeke's lost so much weight, and it's still the same thing. So I think we can move on now to the Chargers. Justin Herbert, their offense looked good. It's just sometimes it would stall. And
well, it's stalled because of penalties. They have a very they have a better offense than the Cowboys, but their offense it's like they have a gun to their own head. It's like we want to hurt ourselves for some reason. I don't know why, but they always are like, let's get a huge gain. Let's score a touchdown. In fact, they had 2 touchdowns called back by penalties. Let's score a touchdown and then get a penalty. It just, I don't understand how that happens. I understand it's a new head coach, and it's Staley, right? Staley's their head coach?
Yeah, Brandon Staley.
Yeah, that's what I thought. And Staley, I think, is going to be a good head coach, but their team is young, and especially that offensive line. Rashawn Slater is really good, but he's young, and holdings are going to happen, and false starts are going to happen, and illegal shifts are going to happen with this team, and they do not seem to know when not to get a penalty. And if they didn't get those penalties, they would have beaten the Cowboys because the Cowboys could not score a touchdown in the second half if they tried.
Yeah, that's very true. Cowboys also had some bad penalties with that punt, 4th and 20, and they hit the kicker or the punter. Gosh,
that was the dumbest thing I've ever seen.
Did you see that weird formation? The like 3 offensive line formation? Please tell me you saw that.
When was that?
It was like the 3rd quarter. the Cowboys line up with 3 offensive linemen.
Is that the play
Dak
where they
does
had
not get
all the wide
pressure.
receivers on one side?
Yeah, but where were the other? I think the other 2 linemen were to the left, and then Dak throws it to CD on the other side, and CD loses 5 yards.
That reminds me of the play on Thanksgiving Day when they had the punt, the fake
Yeah,
punt.
the Colts versus
like,
Patriots when they have like a 3
Yeah.
linemen.
that
and
wasn't
then the
Thanksgiving,
punter
but
gets
yeah,
hit.
yeah, that's the
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
So I
Teams
think we can
hurting
move on.
themselves. Yeah, we can move on to the next team, the Texans. The Texans are the best team out of those 3 teams we just mentioned. I would have the Texans as a better team than the Bears, Cowboys, and Chargers, just because the Texans want to prove everybody wrong. Brandon Cooks is a top 5 wide receiver in the league. I said it. When you have a team like the Texans and you're still getting yards out the wazoo, Brandon Cooks is just that dude. He's that guy, pal. He's insane. And I understand that Tyrod's hurt, and that really hurts their chances of making the playoffs. But their division is terrible, especially with the Colts and Jags, 2 teams in their division, being below them in either Cliffhanger or Dante's Inferno, and the Titans being above them by 1. But the Titans have really struggled in some instances and probably should not have won that game against the Seahawks. So they have a good chance, but we have them in limbo because there always seems to be a reason why they don't do as well as they should. What are your thoughts?
I agree. They've definitely surprised me. Stinks about Tyrod Taylor, and now another rookie QB is coming in. I don't think he'll do as well as the other rookie QBs have done when they come in because the teams before him have spent higher. They've had a higher pick to get this type of quarterback, but they have really done. Brandon Cooks, he's a guy that has been traded a lot, but it's interesting to see what is happening. But now I think we can move on to the Seahawks, who are in limbo. And you know who is not that guy right now? DK Metcalf. The guy is Tyler Lockett.
Tyler Lockett's getting open often.
How many yards do you think DK Metcalf has right now?
70?
Higher. He's over 100.
Oh, okay. 120?
A little bit less.
110.
It's 113.
Okay.
He has 10 receptions, and he only has 1 touchdown. And then I'll look up Tyler Lockett.
Tyler Lockett has over 200. He has to. I'd be very surprised if he's not over 200.
He's at 278 yards, 12
Holy
receptions,
cow.
3 touchdowns.
Yeah, Tyler Lockett is that guy.
So, their defense, it's most notably has been their offense and Tyler Lockett. And that's something they have to keep an eye on. But losing to the Titans is not a very good look, and that's why they're in limbo. What are
Well,
your
it's the
thoughts?
way they lost, really. It's the fact that they were up by so much and then gave up the lead, and then Derrick Henry torched them at the end of the game, and then they end up losing in overtime. Just terrible.
I think that's it. Let's move on to the Patriots. The Patriots lost the first game with Mac Jones, but they got better. Well, they played the Jets, so they should have won that. Their defense did well against the Jets with those 4 picks. Mac Jones, I think they just need, as the season goes on, I think we'll see Mac Jones do better. It's just you're having a small role for him, which you can. I think that's how they will succeed. But they haven't really impressed us so far because they played the Dolphins week 1, correct?
They did, and they lost 17-16 because of Damian Harris fumble.
Yeah,
Or-
so that's
Yeah.
they're good, but nothing positive or negative. So
Yeah.
what are your
We
thoughts?
still expect more out of the Patriots. We have very high expectations for the Patriots, as long as they're coached by Bill Belichick. I think we always will. But I feel like we can move on to the next team. The last team in the limbo is a team that they played week 1, the Dolphins. Tua is a very injury-prone quarterback. I think Tua has a lot of upside, but as we've seen before, he makes me think of a Jake Locker. Do you remember Jake Locker?
I do. Not number 1. I think he was a late first round pick, maybe second round pick with the Titans.
All I needed you to know was that he played for the Titans, and that he was a guy who had a lot of upside after going to. Do you know what university he went to? Because I do.
USC.
No,
Dang it. Texas?
no,
Okay, I don't know that.
Washington. And he was an early first round pick. I believe he was 8th. You can fact check me on that. I believe he was 8th pick, and he played for a good amount of seasons, and he showed some upside. And then he was hurt, and then he was hurt, and then he was hurt, and then he retired at 27 or something like that. So I really hope that doesn't happen for Tua, but the Dolphins should have kept Fitzpatrick. I know people are like, oh, well, Fitzpatrick was hurt right now. Well, Fitzpatrick wouldn't be hurt if he played for the Dolphins because he wouldn't have been in the game until the end. I know they have Jacoby Brissett, and I like Jacoby Brissett, but I like Fitzpatrick more.
Okay, I'm trying to figure out where he was drafted. Oh, yep, 8th overall pick by the Tennessee Titans. So you are correct. He was a backup in 2011, then 2012, moved to starter, and then he retired in 2015.
Yeah, that's when he was 27. Yeah, I just checked.
Yeah. So now we can move into purgatory, and we got a couple of big names in purgatory.
we have our most teams are in purgatory.
Well, yeah, and this one, it's the Chiefs. The first team we're going to talk about. We're going to, in our NFL opinions episode, you'll hear us talk about that big decision by the Ravens. But the Chiefs,
Defense bad. Defense terrible. Defense
rushing
not
defense
good.
terrible. Yeah.
Defense bad.
And Clyde Edwards-Helaire fumbled at the worst time to fumble. And what do you think about people were talking about Jim Harbaugh giving the ball to Lamar? I didn't see a problem with running the ball.
John Harbaugh, right?
John Harbaugh. Yes, I said Jim. My
Yeah.
bad. The Harbaugh who's in the NFL.
What were you saying though?
I don't really blame Andy Reid for running the ball and taking the ball out of Patrick Mahomes' hands.
No.
Like, I don't think Patrick Mahomes. It's just Lamar is a run. He's the best running back. Let me put running back in quotes. He's the best runner right now for the Ravens.
Well, because everybody else is hurt.
Yeah, everyone's injured. Like, Patrick Mahomes is not the best runner for the Chiefs. That's why I said he's always going to have the ball in his hand because they're either running the ball. So that's just an argument I've been hearing. And I'm like, it's just good job by the Ravens to force that turnover. But Clyde Edwards-Helaire, you have to hold on to that ball because even if they kick it, I think they were going to win the game. Maybe it ends up in a touchdown, but on that drive, I'm like, they're marching and they can kick a field goal right there. And I think they'd make it.
Yeah, I expect more of the Chiefs. I don't think the Ravens are on the same level as the Chiefs, mainly because of their injuries. And the fact that the Chiefs lost that game, I think, is really telling that the Chiefs' defense is terrible. You cannot give up that many points. You can't. You can't do that. You can't. You can't. I don't care how good your team is. I don't care how good your offense is. You can't give up 36 points and expect to win. Not every game is going to be that Chiefs versus Rams game from 3 years ago where both teams scored 50 points. And so, oh wow, we're so good. No, you're terrible. Your offense is good and your defense sucked. And the Chiefs gave up a lot of points to the Browns, and they're lucky that their offense came all the way back and carried them to a victory. The Chiefs need to figure out their defense, and so do the Bucks. We'll get to them, but they're in the highest tier because their offense is just so historically great right now. But while Patrick Mahomes and the crew on offense are really being very good, they can only carry them so long. And I know we want to blame Helaire. The offense can only do so much. The offense scored 35 points. If you lose and you scored 35 points, it is the defense's fault. I don't care if they fumbled at the end of the game. I don't care. You should be afforded at least one mistake on offense. But with the Chiefs defense right now, you can't even give one.
Well, there was one mistake before the fumble, that Patrick Mahomes interception. When he was falling down and he threw it, I did not like that. I know it could have been. I just take the sack there.
That's not in Mahomes' mindset. Mahomes isn't a take the sack. He's more like an Aaron Rodgers or Brett Favre. I'm going to throw this ball no matter what. I could compare it to Brett Favre. It's Brett Favre if Brett Favre threw less picks and was actually more intelligent about where to throw the ball. But that's a Brett Favre interception, especially a young, athletic Brett Favre. I'm throwing this ball. I'm going to throw this ball. I don't care how I throw it. I really don't care where I throw it, but I'm throwing this ball towards a receiver. And I know it was a bad pick. And I know they had that really early pick six, that Tyrann Mathieu pick, and Lamar didn't play that well at the beginning of the game, but still the Chiefs really underperformed. We spent way too much time on the Chiefs. So we can move on to the
Yeah.
next team, the Packers, who got throttled week one versus Saints and then played very, very well against the Lions, but it's the Lions. We need to see more out of them. Who do they play next week? I can't remember.
The Packers play. Oh my gosh, I just discussed this.
Oh, I found it. It's 49ers.
Yeah, 49ers. That's who it was. It's
Oh,
Sunday
that's
Night
it.
Football.
That's an NFC championship rematch for 2019.
Yeah, and the key thing to me with what I noticed with the Packers was their run game. You really fed the ball, and then I think Aaron Rodgers is just working off because there's some throws, but it was raining. But there were just some throws. I'm like, okay, he's still getting used to it. But if you can run the ball like you did against the Lions, I think you have a very good chance. And then Zadarius Smith, he is not on IR, correct? But he just has that back injury, so he could play against the
I
Niners.
don't know if he's on IR. I just remember that he's hurt. I knew he was out for last game. I'm
Yeah.
assuming he'll still be out for this one, but I don't know for sure.
So what do you think? Oh yeah, he's on IR. The Packers placed him on IR.
Yeah, I thought they did, but I didn't know for sure. But the Packers are just a team they're a team that starts slow. We all know this. They're like the Patriots, sort of, except they don't win championships like the Patriots. At least they win some, unlike the Cowboys. But uh, but they're a team that starts slow, and they always have that relax moment where Aaron Rodgers says it for the 1500th time, relax, even though we're not panicked at all because we've seen it 300 times now. But they need to really prove their worth first to 49ers, and until then, they're going to be stuck in purgatory because they're definitely not in Garden of Eden after that week one loss. But now we can go to the team that beat them in week one, the Saints, who got throttled by the Panthers. What are your thoughts about that game?
I was very surprised. Good job by the Panthers. Saints, maybe they just got a little caught up in the moment of beating the Packers that well. So that's something. They're a young team, and I'm sure you have that veteran presence in Cameron Jordan, but maybe on the offensive side you're missing that presence of Drew Brees at the quarterback. What do you think?
Yeah, Drew Brees. Another part is I think the leadership of Drew Brees. He after that big win versus the Packers would be like, guys, we won, great job. Let's have a great time tonight. But on Monday when they went to practice, or if they got Monday off, Tuesday when they went to practice, okay, let's lock in. This Panthers team's 1-0. Let's take them as they're an undefeated team. Let's tee up or tighten up, whatever you want to say. And now the Saints need to take a step back. I still believe they're a good team. Take a step back. Okay, guys, let's calm down. We got ahead of ourselves, but we still should be fine. Kamara got me like 7 points in my fantasy league, which really depressed me. But the Saints need to just pump the brakes on them being the greatest team ever after destroying the Packers and just say, okay, we know what we need to do. We have a coach who's been there, done that. Then let's tighten up for next week.
Now
Next
let's
team-
go. Yeah. We can go to the Ravens, who lost that game to the Raiders, but they rebounded really well, defeating the Chiefs. The run game was great, but I do like their passing game. I'm surprised that Sammy Watkins is on the field, and if he can stay on, maybe they make him. That makes them more of a dangerous threat because they do have good wide receivers, but that's the thing that's been lacking. And Lamar is defeating the idea that he can't come from. He can come back actually, because that was a thing early on in his career. Once they got down, they couldn't really get out of it. But that's something he's starting to overcome, and he did that with the Chiefs. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, but I do think it's important to realize that Kansas City was going to get a field goal there if they did not fumble. Their defense needs to improve. I know they lost Marcus Peters, but that isn't an excuse. I really like their D line, but they give up way too many points to a Chiefs team that, while they are very, very, very good, there still is no reason to give it that many points.
And that's something I just want to harp on before. They've had so many injuries. You can look something might need to change the training staff. But that's what separates average teams between good playoff teams that can make a push. Their depth. Like, they have experienced a lot of injuries, but they have people stepping up, and the coaching staff is making changes. That's like the big thing. Like with the Cowboys, um, last year was different because of Dak, but like, let's say Connor Williams goes down, they're like, oh, game over. His season's over. They lose Randy Gregory to a suspension. Oh, we can't do anything. The Ravens have experienced so many injuries so far in this season, and they're still doing well. That's just something because they have that depth and they have really hit on their picks in the later rounds. That's what separates good teams from great teams.
Well, I mean, we could really see that back in 2016 when that team lost to the Patriots. That Patriots team didn't have Gronk. Gronk was out. And how could you win without Gronk? Well, I mean, Tom Brady's just that good. It does not matter. Injuries really could not matter less. In 2017, when they went to the Super Bowl and really almost won that Super Bowl, they didn't have Julian Edelman. They had Gronk, but they didn't have Edelman. And they definitely could have won that Super Bowl against the Eagles. Injuries don't matter. They don't. Unless it's quarterback. And still then it could not. There's still instances where it doesn't matter. Like
the Nick Foles story.
Yeah, I was about to say. It matters significantly more. But there's never an excuse. Never. I hate the excuse, oh, we were supposed to lose. No, you weren't. You were only supposed to lose when you thought you should. But I feel like we can go on to the next team. The next team is Washington, a team that is facing the exact scenario we just discussed with a QB injury. And their defense was really torched by a Giants team that plays really good against Washington as of late. Daniel Jones was 4-0 in his career versus Washington before that game and is now obviously 4-1. But I think it's more about how this young team just battled through adversity. How the kicker missed the first kick. Okay, they messed up. I'm gonna make them pay and makes the second field goal. It's not Washington's fault that they got a second chance to make it. So they took advantage of their opportunities and won the game.
Very true. Taylor Heineke played well.
Terry McLaurin's so good. He's so good.
Yeah. I think he's started 32 times. The stat was 31, but after the Thursday, 32 times, 10 different quarterbacks. I'm pretty sure.
That makes sense
because you got Case Keenum, Alex Smith, Taylor Heineke, and then there
Fitzpatrick.
Kyle Allen, huh?
Fitzpatrick.
No, Fitzpatrick. So yeah, there's a lot of different players.
And we'd even talk about the guy that they drafted, Dwayne Haskins.
Oh yeah, because he did.
Colt McCoy. Josh Johnson. I can rattle off through a lot of these.
We're at 8. We're at 8. Who are the other two?
Who else started that Josh Johnson year? Because I remember 2 quarterbacks got hurt. It was Case Keenum who got hurt, and then it was somebody else that got hurt, and then Josh Johnson started those last couple of games, and they were fighting for a playoff spot. It could have been Colt McCoy. Colt McCoy has a lot of injury history.
Maybe it was 8.
It could have been 8. That's all I can name. Josh Johnson, Colt McCoy, Taylor Heineke, Kyle Allen, Dwayne Haskins, Ryan Fitzpatrick, Alex Smith, Case Keenum.
So a lot of quarterbacks. Terry McLaurin is very good. I was surprised they gave up that many points. I think now we can move on to the Buffalo Bills. Their defense did well against the Dolphins, but Dolphins were missing Tua. I think the offense is starting to heat up. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, definitely. The offense is definitely starting to pick it up, and that makes sense. They're definitely a team that going into the season we saw as a top 5 offense in the league, and so now they're picking it up. And while I still don't, their defense isn't outstanding in my opinion. They're not a top tier defense. They still have they have a defense capable of making a long run.
Yeah, Josh Allen is my MVP pick, so I have high expectations for this offense. But now we can move on to the Eagles. They beat. Who did they beat week 1? They beat
the Falcons.
32-6. They have Jalen Hurts. I've definitely criticized their head coach. And Devontae Smith has been doing well. and they just can't touch him, so they can't lay a hit on him. So looks to be he is looking well for them right now. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, things are definitely. There's more hope this season than there was last season, especially because of their quarterback situation. It's set. It's Jalen Hurts, and even if he gets injured, they have Joe Flacco. So I believe that they have a much higher expectations than they had last year. But I feel like we can move on to the next team, the Cardinals. And even though the Cardinals are 2-0, that scare last week is mainly the reason why we have them here in purgatory. I still love their offense and partially their defense, but you can't give up 33 points to a Vikings team that's really struggling on offense against the Bengals the week before. And the Bengals, besides Jesse Bates, really do not have all that great of a defense.
Yeah, and Cardinals, they could have lost that game if the kicker hits the field goal. So that's why they're in purgatory. Now we go on to the Titans. They did pull out the win, but they were a team that got destroyed by the Cardinals, and their offense did not click in the first game. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, the Titans are a team that really looks like a one-trick pony, and even though Ryan Tannehill's played well this season, many receivers aren't getting open like they used to last year. So they need to find out how to work out those kinks. Anthony Firkser being out hurts because he's their tight end one. So they're going to need to get healthy and make sure that their offensive line, Taylor Lewan, was out last game because of a pre-game injury. So they just got to get healthy.
Yeah, it's very true. Now we go to the Browns. The Browns struggled against the Texans, and then they lost to the Chiefs. But there is some hope as they have a good defense is doing better. I really like their linebacking core, and you have some injuries with Jarvis Landry and Odell, so that hurts their their receiving attack. But they do have a good rushing attack. What do you have to add?
Yeah, and I believe that if Tyrod didn't get hurt, that the Texans had a chance of beating the Browns last week. So that's why the Browns are here and not in Garden of Eden. It's not because they're 1-1. Because that Chiefs game was very difficult, but they didn't make the Texans game look easy.
And another team that did not make the win look easy as they won 17-11 was the 49ers. They do sprinkle in a little bit of Trey Lance, but it's going to be a big test for them. It's a big test for both teams, Packers versus the Niners. And they have experienced some hardship with their running back as they lost Mostert to an injury. So
Yeah,
what do you have to add?
I was definitely considering putting them in limbo because it always seems like every year multiple running backs get hurt, and I'm just waiting to hear the next time a running back gets hurt. But health is definitely an issue with them, and they have to get Brandon Ayuk settled as he has, I think, 0 receptions all year. So for a guy who's supposed to be as impactful as he is, having 0 yards, 0 receptions really, really hurts a team that needs all the offense they can get.
He actually has one reception for 6
For
yards.
Oh wow, so much different than
But
0-0.
But he has one. It's now we can talk about the Steelers. Their team, they haven't got their run game going. And I think you need the run game, especially when you have an older quarterback who does not take care of himself like another older quarterback, Tom Brady.
Well, I believe he's taking care of himself better this season than he has previously, but that's still the damage is done, as many people say. And while he is still, I think Ben Roethlisberger is a capable quarterback. He does not have the mobility he used to. He used to be a pretty good running quarterback. He does not have that anymore. He still has a tiny, tiny, tiny bit of mobility. He can outrush or out move out of the way of some rushes, but he needs that run game to start working for this team to have a chance.
And Najee Harris has shown some flashes. TJ Watt, though, is a big injury. And I know groin injuries can linger, so he really needs to fix that. And you could tell how the Raiders were able to rebound after TJ Watt left. But I think now we can enter the Garden of Eden. So the first team, pretty easy, the Bucks. They're in the Garden of Eden. They've done incredibly well, even despite the injuries to their secondary. So they do have they do have Vita Vea, who's a great tackle, with the Ndamukong Suh, and then you have Jason Pierre-Paul and Shaquille Barrett. But the secondary, hopefully they can get healthy because that could impact them later in the season.
Yeah, and for an explanation, Garden of Eden does not mean teams that are 2-0 because we have 2-0 49ers and Cardinals in purgatory. It's a perfect 2 weeks. And while obviously they could have made it a lot easier on themselves versus the Cowboys and definitely against the Falcons, the way this offense has performed, I don't think you could ask for any better. And while you do need your secondary to get healthy, this is really the ideal start. Get your injuries out at the beginning of the season. Hopefully, they can come back by the playoff time and make sure that your injuries stay away during playoff time, so your team can stay in contention. And with Tom Brady,
Now,
they always are.
yeah, that's very true. Now we have the Raiders. Raiders have done a good job coming back from behind, and they've just done well. They were without Josh Jacobs against the Steelers, but Derek Carr did well, and that's something. It's starting to look good for the Raiders so far. That's why they're in the Garden of Eden.
Yeah, beating two playoff teams or last year playoff teams in the Steelers and Ravens to start the season. Even though the Ravens game went to overtime and they won it and then they didn't win it and then they won it. So, but still, for a Raiders team that hasn't made the playoffs since 2017, it's been a great year to start off.
Yeah. Now we go to the Rams, and I was talking about their offense earlier. They have Cooper Kupp, they have Van Jefferson, they have Robert Woods. Um, their running game is good, and their defense, it looks good. And you have Aaron Donald, you have Jalen Ramsey, so it's looking good for them so far. And if you have that great quarterback in Stafford, with that offense, Sean McVay is just dreaming up plays that he can use.
Yeah, and I'm really excited for this game next week, or I guess this week, Rams versus Bucks. That's really going to show which team is still in the Garden of Eden. And I guess both technically could be if they both have a really good game. But I feel like one team will show their cracks, and it's good to have this early in the season because this really could be the NFC Championship game.
Now we go to the Panthers, who have really surprised me. Sam Darnold doing well, and this is the second year of Matt Rule, and he has done a good job of turning this, because it did not look good when they cut Cam Newton. They signed Teddy Bridgewater. They did trade Teddy Bridgewater, but we'll talk more about that. And then you get trade for Sam Darnold. But they really invested in their defense last year, and now it's paying off for them so far this year. We'll see how it goes. We'll see if they can sustain the success.
Who did they beat week one?
They beat the Jets.
Yeah, so that's not all that impressive of a win. But last week's 25-7 or whatever win was very, very impressive, and they could not be in a better position. Christian McCaffrey looks healthy; he looks 100%, and it's really helped their chances of making the playoffs.
Yeah, and now we go to a team that Teddy Bridgewater was traded to, the Broncos. And Teddy Bridgewater, I've just been surprised with the Broncos offense, but Bradley Chubb did get injured, so that is a scary thing for defense. But you still have Von Miller, and then Patrick Surtain did get a nice pick, so that's
Patrick
something to keep an
Surtain
eye on.
looks really good, and
Yeah.
once you get Bradley Chubb back, I feel like their defense will be set, and I definitely think they have a chance. Teddy Bridgewater does not turn over the ball much. Cortland Sutton's a great wide receiver. They have a great wide receiver core in general. I like Melvin Gordon, so they're Garden of Eden 2-0, and they are everything's looking up, and it should be a good start. That continues this week.
Yeah, let us know what you think of the names, and we appreciate you listening, and be on the lookout for other episodes from Outsiders Opinions.